Hi, this is Prem from Triibe, and I am keen to unpack some of the patterns that I notice when I reflect on the ways that I might relate to others, and then when I look at that, I can uncover underneath that there's actually then patterns in my thinking or my meaning making. And then I notice that there's patterns then also in my emotions that I feel. And then I also see that there's patterns from that place in my behavior. And so looking or taking inventory of these patterns, something that I start to see is that some of them are actually not useful and in fact impact my relationships in a negative way and impact my feelings of happiness and actually have me not really feel like, or not even feel like, not have access to feeling responsible really for where my life is going when I go unconscious about these patterns, or I feel a sense of entitlement around these patterns, or I don't even know them, for example, then I for sure am at effect of them, right? So it's kind of like denial, delusion, and then, puffing up and feeling righteous about them. And that's really costly, when I look at these sabotaging patterns. If I'm in any three of those, it's really costly to my relationship. So I'm, in the name of sharing something vulnerable this evening, I want to share something that's present for me and just kind of unpack it here. And I'm curious to see who relates to this. I don't imagine that I'm special in any way, having these patterns that I'm identifying. And as I actually have desire to start to bring these less glamorous, if you like, aspects of self into a public sharing space so that we can start to reduce shame for a start that we might feel about these things, because I think shame is the thing that would have me protect these patterns and not and then when I'm protecting them, then I'm not actually very likely to change them, because when I'm protecting a pattern, then where my attention is on the impact that it's having on someone else. And then if I'm not present to the impact that I have on someone else, and I'm only present to the impact something has on me, there's a payoff to these patterns. So whilst they might have, take me to a place where I don't feel very good, there's a payoff to them to begin with, which is why they're there in the first place. They're there to protect me from you, or they're there to try to manipulate how you see me, basically. So there's a payoff in both of those for me. So actually, if I'm somehow protecting these patterns by being in any of those three categories that I talked about before, then I'm unlikely to be really thinking about the impact on the people around me. And I actually do care about the impact that I have on those around me who I love, because I want my relationships to be ones that are secure, and I want for people to have an experience of me, of being able to trust me. And when I talk about trust, I say to people, don't trust me, just trust what I do, as in, don't trust an idea you have of me, just trust me based on who I've been. That's probably who I'm going to be. And, there's things that I've done that I will try and, I'm in the process of changing, or things that I don't do that I want to start doing. But today, people can take me on face value for who I was probably yesterday. And I want for my history to be one that reflects a sense of secure attachment, and one where I'm somebody who will make admissions when I impact people, someone who champions for other people's sovereignty as much as I champion for my own, somebody who leaves someone in a better state than what they found them in. These kinds of things are really high values for me. Okay, so I think, recently I talked about resentment, and how resentment, my experience of resentment is that underneath resentment is a need or a desire, but there's a whole lot of story that's wrapped around that need or desire that has me believe that I can't have it for some reason, that I'm ineffective or I'm helpless and I can't create whatever that thing is that I want or outcome that I want. And so the reaction to that thought is one of resentment, such that I'm in like a freeze hold. And so having an awareness of what's the need or the desire that sits underneath my resentment is, in my personal practice, is step one for me in the process. So it's like awareness, right? And then, but awareness isn't enough. I've actually been someone who's done a lot of inventory of myself and personal development work and navel gazing, and it's awesome. And I can talk a lot about what I know about myself. And then what's really where I kind of get a sense of how well I'm doing, it's in actually the choices and actions that I'm taking in my life. I could be the most self-aware person and yet have super unhealthy relationships and not good hygiene around finances, and not be taking care of my body and my home, and my relationships being in disarray and these kinds of things. But I could tell you the ins and outs of the inner workings of my mind. That's not enough, right? So awareness, though, is the first step, I believe. And then from that place, once I have awareness, I get a sense of where my power center is. I get a sense of, is this something that I can resolve myself? Is this something that I am going to need some support with? And who might that support person be? Do they need to be, what level of trust do I need with that person? Is it a friend that I need to reach out to talk it through with? Do I need to acquire some new skills, perhaps do a course? Do I need some therapy? What do I need? Do I just need someone to hear me? Or is this need or desire something that actually involves another person, and that I need to actually reach out to that person? And so having an awareness first of what the need is, great, awesome. And then knowing where my power center is from that place. And then it's like, oh, that's the choice. And then the next step is taking action. And, to be in full transparency here, what I'll tell you is that this is where I struggle. I struggle in the action step. And I'm really curious about myself at the moment and why that might be. And so two of the things that I'm present to and have been for some time, but I'm kind of really re-looking at these two patterns currently, or characteristics, if you like. Negative, I would call them negative characteristics. They have some positive, but there's shadow to them, and I'm interested in their shadow right now. Two that I can really see play out for me are people-pleasing and perfectionism. And so, for me, I'm going to just talk a little bit about what they look like for me, and you may be able to relate to that, although they might look different for you. So people-pleasing for me looks like, well, it basically is born out. In fact, both of these, the shadow side of these characteristics that, if you like, character traits that I have, the shadow is born out from skewed thinking, basically. And so I have meaning making or thinking that tells me that I can do things or not reveal everything or not say the full thing that I want or need or that I feel upset about. And that by doing that, I can then control how you feel about me, or I can control how pleased you feel with me. And so that's like, it's dishonest, right? So when I think about people pleasing, I'm not just thinking about saying yes to everything, although that is definitely a way that it plays out. It plays out for me in not revealing everything. And I don't believe in needing to reveal everything. I've talked lots about containment, but there's a difference. When I say not revealing everything, this would be details that would actually be important for the other person to know about me. And perhaps I'm sharing how something impacted me, and I don't really want to say the full thing, because if I do, then they won't be pleased with me. So I might just say 20% of it, or I might say 70% of it, but my people-pleasing pattern will have me leave out actually probably quite important data for the other person to know. And I say it's quite important data. My main reason for saying that is because it reveals more about me in sharing transparently, and it cultivates deeper intimacy, and that's what I want. Like, so this is where I don't act in my own best interest, because my truth is that I deeply want intimacy with people, especially people who I'm really close to, like a partner or a parent or a best friend or a housemate or a work colleague. Deep intimacy and continued deepening in intimacy is really important to me. And so why I see that there's shadow to this is that withholding data from people that are really close to me inhibits intimacy, and therefore it's not actually acting in my own best interest or in the best interest of the relationship. People-pleasing can also play out for me in the obvious ways, which is saying yes to too many things, saying yes to things that I actually can't do, and then I'm scrambling to try and figure out how to do them. Shit, I used to do that a lot when I was going for job interviews in my 20s. Oh, yeah, I can do that. I've been a personal assistant to, top real estate agent before, of course. No, I haven't. And then I'm trying to learn how to do it. Oh, yeah, I've been a marketing manager before. No, I haven't. So this is where people-pleasing could get me into a lot of trouble. And that leads me into also the other sort of strategy that that I can see that I have that would either try to protect me from you or try and control how you see me or how you feel about me, is perfectionism. And for me, what that looks like is it is born out of the skewed thinking that I can create some kind of perception that I am perfect so that you feel positive, warm regard towards me. And again, in the same way that people-pleasing is damaging to intimacy, this really inhibits intimacy, because apart from the fact that I probably get sidetracked by trying to get myself perfect and how I say things perfectly and et cetera, or how I do something perfectly, where it really inhibits intimacy is without the muscle of accepting my imperfections and being out in the world, owning them on the outside. If I haven't developed that muscle, when you see my imperfection, which you're going to, it's crazy to think that I can fool people that I'm perfect. Like, I don't even know what that is, by the way. It's a whole skewed delusion in the first place. But of course, I might have an ideal way that I might say something, or leave it at that. That's pretty much where I get caught up the most. So essentially what happens then is you will see imperfections, and if you point to them if I don't have a good internal boundary system, which has been developed through practice of being in circumstances or situations where I've developed a filtering system such that I can hear data coming in, there's some space between you, me, and the data, and I can assess whether that really feels true for me or what part does and what part doesn't, and then take it in, the parts that do, and have my feelings about it. If I haven't got practiced at that, because I'm too busy being perfect and not wanting you to see any of it, then basically I don't have then a good, nice thick buffer that will actually have you and I be able to have conversations about my imperfections without me getting triggered. And then when that happens, triggering can look different on different days, but what happens then is I actually inhibit the very intimacy that I actually want with someone. So it's this really bad mechanism of self-protection, because it actually doesn't help me at any level. You're going to see my imperfections anyway. The closer you get to me, you're going to see those. I probably may even just be abandoning you by my incessant wanting for things to be perfect. That's possible, or neglect you. So that's going to automatically have you start to see imperfections. Or if I withhold certain details or be dishonest about my capabilities, then that's a real shortfall, and you're going to start to feel that. You're going to start to feel that things are missing. When I have perfectionism stuff running, it's really hard for me to apologize. It's really hard for me to go, I'm actually perfectly imperfect, but what that means is that at times I show up in a way that's probably less than good enough for you, and what's the impact been of that, and really checking that out with you. But if I'm more invested in managing your perception of me being perfect, again, I'm not going to have my attention on you and the impact I might be having on you. So both of these traits will have me be kind of more self-focused, essentially, because I'm trying to control how you perceive me, and therefore I don't actually have a good lens or good attention or awareness of how I might be impacting you. And I think that if we are going to have deep functional relationships, knowing our impact is vital. It's vital feedback. Vital feedback because it tells me something about you. The impact that I have on you actually tells me a lot about you, but it can also give me really important feedback about my own behavior, my own thinking, the ways that I express myself, and may give rise to me actually wanting to adapt my behavior or thinking or expression, if it feels right for me and I don't have to abandon an important part of self, which I would never do. But actually, the whole notion of perfectionism would have me not really even being able to see and love and cherish my preciousness, because I can only see myself through a certain lens. So I will miss these beautiful parts of myself that are perfectly imperfect, and missing the beauty in them. So the last thing that I want to share about in terms of perfectionism is because I would want to do it right, it has me then get into a freeze hold at times around having important conversations. So like I started with, where I was speaking about awareness of my desire or my needs underneath resentment is, for me, a first step. If I then get caught up in needing to get it perfect, how I go about that, for example, let's say the need is something that I can meet for myself. Let's say I feel resentful about Oreos. That's a genuine resentment that I have at the moment. I obsessively think about them. And And so I obsessively think about them, and so I'm in resentment because they're taking me out of the present moment. So there's something that I am trying to get from them that I feel I can't get in the present moment. And so what am I resentful about? I feel resentful about I feel resentful about not being perfect, like physically perfect. I feel resentful, and then underneath that is a desire to be okay and be natural in myself. And so basically to kind of cope with the feelings that arise, because there's meaning making in my head that tells me that I'm not perfect and there's something wrong with my naturalness, to self-regulate, I pick up, sugar-free Oreo and eat 5 of them. And so where this might be different, instead of medicating with food, for example, feeling what is the actual need that I have. So the actual need that I have is to feel love for myself. Now, that for me does not mean lying around my house, doing nothing, just telling myself that I love myself. There is a genuine need for me to move my body. There's a genuine need for me to have a good relationship with healthy food. So this is something that I can resolve myself. And so what that might look like then is me going to a gym, but not doing it obsessively, because then I'd be resentful, but doing it in a way that actually cultivates the very need underneath, which is to feel self-love and compassion. However, where my perfectionism will then come in and have this be quite a skewed experience is my perfectionism will have me want to do it perfectly. And then my skewed thinking around perfectionism will be whatever it is on that day. But the reality is it will take me back into resentment, because needing to be perfect takes me away from the very thing that I wanted to feel in the first place, which is at home in my own preciousness, perfectly imperfect. So perfectionism will play out that way for me with myself. So I get overly obsessive around being perfect with myself. And then how that might play out with someone else is, I know that I have a need to communicate, say, a boundary around with my housemates, for example. This is not true, by the way. We've already had this conversation and it's going really well. But, there was a time where I needed to have a conversation around what my needs are in terms of our living space. And I notice the closer someone is to me, the harder it is for me, as in the more my perfectionism comes up, the more my people-pleasing comes up, because those traits are there to protect me, right? And they're there to control how you see me. And the people who I don't want to abandon me, who I don't want to stop loving me, are the people who are closest to me. So these are where the patterns come up like the most for me. So if I'm to have a conversation with someone who's very close to me, like a partner or a parent, where my perfectionism gets in the way or erodes intimacy is it tells me that I can't have the conversation until I'm fully sorted, till I have no emotions around it anymore, till I know exactly what my part was, till I know exactly how I'm going to say it, and the list goes on. And look, I'm a huge believer in bringing the skills that I know into my relating, and that can be sometimes the perfect excuse for my perfectionism to just run riot. So, and then what happens is I don't have a conversation, and then I start to obsess about it, and then I'm in resentment. So it's this self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially. So something that I'm really getting today is that the cost of my perfectionism, so I sell it to myself like it's gonna have people love me, and it doesn't. It actually erodes my relationships. That's very costly. And what I'm committing to today, and I feel I feel a bit nervous about leaning all the way into it, but I have done it already today, is just to have a conversation and start a conversation. Like, it's going to be messy. I've got these shitty character traits that have this shadow side, and so they're going to have me be awkward in a conversation, and they're going to have me at times be dishonest or not say the full thing. But the reality is I have to show up, because if I don't show up, I'm actually paralyzed by this stuff. Like, I'm paralyzed in relationship, and then I have to just start hiding myself from you. If I can't tell you what's going on for me because I've got to get it right and perfect, I have to hide from you. And then there's no intimacy, and then it's like, it's this vicious cycle. So it's kind of ironic because I teach relational skills, and in that there's a place, and my background's in psychology, so there's this place where I can get really perfectionistic about how I need to show up because of that. And it's BS, actually. If I didn't have those skills, the exact same patterns would be running. In fact, part of why I went on the track that I've been on is partially because I wanted to do it perfectly and I wanted to get it right. There's definite benefit to that. I'm super grateful for this journey and I wouldn't change it, but there's shadow to it. And it's like the super ego, the spiritual ego, and I have to be very, very careful of it. So today I'm committing to, and just for today, and I'll recommit again tomorrow, is to show up to conversations, start them. And then they're probably going to get messy until I build these muscles of practice around being okay with my imperfection. And then I need to check for impact, And if I authentically offend someone, and which I would hope at this stage I don't, but hey, I'm perfectly imperfect, I may do that, then I may need to apologize about how I show up. But for me personally, paralysis, because I'm in perfectionism, is a killer, and it's expensive. And I'm just like, I'm not willing to spend my grace dollars there anymore. Sharing this, I notice there's a way that I have to come up and out at this point of my body a little bit to share this with you. Like, I genuinely have shame about this, and I feel grief about it. And I'm present to how it impacts me. And I'm present to, doesn't matter how many tools and skills I have, once that skewed thinking starts, which is around to try and stop you from abandoning me or somehow, or withdrawing love from me, when I try and manipulate how I am seen, part of my brain goes offline. It's like a survival mechanism, And I genuinely feel pretty powerless over it, and because there's a very strong superhighway in my brain that will do anything for someone not to leave me or not love me or withdraw attention from me. And I feel some pain in my heart sharing that. Because there's a little girl in there that truly believes that she needs to present something to keep being loved, or that there's no room for mistakes. And that's normal for a little girl to think that, I reckon. Like, it's normal. But I'm not a little girl. There is that one in me, but I actually know there's an adult in me who knows that I actually can do cleanup if I need to. The cost of me not taking action, or the cost of me manipulating how someone sees me, or leaving out data that's the really vulnerable data so that I get seen in a certain way, it actually ends up having that little girl have the very thing that she's trying to avoid, which is a lack of intimacy and a lack of love, and that's actually where it takes me. And I feel pain about that, but I also feel a level of relief, like a level of getting free. Like I feel like I'm getting free, you know? I'm admitting this on camera because we said we do it every day, but I'm actually really grateful for that. There's something that's very, very freeing for me in this process of admitting. Yeah, I also feel some like relief just having kind of gotten present with you guys, even though I can't see you. Just getting present with myself and coming back into my body and kind of sharing what's here in this moment. Thanks for watching, guys. It means a lot to me. Okay, good night.